This is Troy Baker.
254973292 to the root power of 4.
Ladies and gentlemen, Troy Baker is here with us live.
I am very much live, and I am shocked, aghast. Hello, everyone. I'm Alan Tudyk.
How dare they?
How dare they? How very dare they? I guess listening back, you know, you give me this incredible opportunity to do something that I normally don't get a chance to do. I'm like, man, I'm gonna dive into this. And like, how can I really? We're about the same time we were doing Medium, and so I was like, I really want to like stretch myself and see what I can't kind of come up with. And so I dig in. I'm like, all right, I'm gonna create this whole. It really needs to sound like it's not human. This is very mechanical, but it also has to have the sense that this thing is chasing her down through the galaxy. I'm like totally into that. And I create this character and some guy goes, "That's Troy."
Yeah, right.
Like, son of a bitch.
Everyone's snacking on their Hot Pockets and going, "Oh, that's Troy."
Yeah. That's Troy Baker.
Now,
he was in Naruto. He played Pain.
I was watching the reactions as they came in, and I'm guessing that that it was a combination of people who were able to identify like a hint of your voice, even under all of that processing.
Sure.
But also, I think people guessing like, well, who can Gary really get? Like, whose arm can he twist? I'm not twisting Benedict Cumberbatch's arm anytime soon.
Right. It's a small Rolodex of like, all right, what friends can I take advantage of? That's not true, because honestly, every one of us that are fortunate enough to call you friend, I am one of them.
I appreciate that very much.
I'm one of 6 people, including your mom.
Let's leave her out of this.
Friend. You're always you're doing something. You're either writing or you created a truly phenomenal podcast in the middle of the pandemic, and everyone's kind of
that was fun.
Grateful. That was a lot of fun and really successful. But everybody wants to see you succeed. You're like the guy that we all are rooting for. You're the hometown boy for everybody.
That's very touching. I don't know how true
it's
that
true.
is. I am very. Go ahead.
No, I was just saying. And I remember I knew you before I knew you. I read your script, and I wasn't supposed to have the script. I was just dating a girl that was on the movie, and so I got a copy of it, and I was like, "This is really, really good."
Oh wow! I didn't know that. I think this might be the first time you've told me that.
Well, maybe what's the statute of limitations of reading stuff you're not supposed to read?
No, it's all good.
It was. How did we not tell this story to each other before? I was dating a girl, and she was on. She was an AD. She was a second. Actually, she may have even been a PA. But I also knew the stunt coordinator on this as well, and so I was like, I want to read this book, or I want to read this script, and so it was this script for this movie starring Denzel Washington, up and coming actor Denzel.
Yes,
Washington.
I think he's got quite the career ahead of him if he plays his cards right. Yeah,
we'll see. And so I'm a massive fan of him, and I read this script, and I was like, it was one of the first times I've always had a hard time reading scripts. Like I can read dialogue. But like reading a script and understanding it, and I was like, this is really, really good. And like I saw the movie, and then I saw the movie, and I was like, they changed some stuff. There's some different things that there.
Yeah, typical. You go through a lot of rewrites, a lot of development. I mean, remarkably, it actually isn't like so many other movies. It's actually is pretty much what was originally written and intended. Like it got better and it got rewritten and improved, but like in terms of like, is that the movie that I wanted to make? Yes.
Yeah, spiritually, yes. It was just the execution of it. But what's so funny is all of a sudden, like, I guess, how did we meet? Was it through Austin?
It must have been.
Must have been. Either that or Greg Miller.
It could have been. I mean, Greg is the nexus through which so many of us
he's the gateway drug. I think he's retired now, though. I don't think he's doing anything anymore. Yeah.
We're not that lucky. I think we've got a few more decades of Greg before we can finally put that to bed.
Yeah.
But listen, I wanted to, as I've done this offline, obviously several times. I want to take the opportunity to thank you for being a part of this. And I literally just called you up, and there was no like, well, here's my rider, no brown M&Ms, none of that.
You didn't get that?
Oh, no.
Boy, that explains a lot. Dude, it truly has been my pleasure. It's like I said, you gave me a character that with some meat. It's something that I'm not used to doing. People call me up to do this one thing, and when someone goes, I think you can do this, and whenever I'm considered a solution to a problem, that is the highest compliment that I can be given. And it's good stuff. Like if your writing was shit, I wouldn't do it. I would be your friend, but I still wouldn't. But your writing is good, and I want to see you succeed. So I'm happy to be a part of this, and I hope that people continue to not only support it but participate and speculate and have water cooler conversation around it because it's really something unique.
Yeah, it was fun, and it was a big episode tonight. Lots of big events happening, and I was really excited for people to hear you as this character. And I thought it's fun, right? Because of the first like 2.5 episodes, it's all Shannon. She does
Sure.
everything, and so to have this kind of first kind of interstitial where suddenly it's a different voice, a different perspective, I think is really interesting. It was kind of interesting, the way it's written in the book is a certain way, but like when the time came to do this as audio, I was like, well, what is this actually going to sound like? I didn't know what the mech actually sounded like, and I didn't until you sent me the file. What I thought was interesting, and people might be interested to know this, was we didn't talk about this, but I fully
Mm.
expected you to send me your voice in some kind of character, because I told you like who the mech were, and they're kind of a machine race, so very kind of robotic and efficient, and kind of bureaucratic. But I fully expected you to kind of be in character, but then I would then figure out like how to kind of like mech it up and add that the processing and the filtering. But what people heard tonight was what you sent me. You did all of that yourself, all of your own post processing, all of your own kind of audio effects. I actually want to. I don't think I ever did want to ask you what were you? I don't know if you're like an amateur audio nerd or whatever, but what you did was
Yeah.
tremendous. I was kind of curious to know like what you actually did to kind of create that really cool
Thank
effect.
you. If there's any audio nerds and especially budding engineers or talented engineers can probably stop listening because they'll get really annoyed by it. But I, very, very seldom do I like to build a character I'm using rabbit ears, build a character from the outside in. I always like to kind of find it first and then just kind of like let somebody else experiment with this. But being someone who I've always been a studio rat. I love audio gear. I love playing with plugins, and I love to mess around with mixing music. I would never do it professionally. This gave me an opportunity to go, well, what does it sound like if I do this? And so there's a couple of plugins that I used that were I don't even have my rig pulled up right now that I could show you, but a lot of it is just really putting it through just a vocal processor that is made to both harmonize and then also just crunch it to where it just sounds like it has this natural distortion to it. So all I had to do was really kind of just give it the baseline of, this mech is being charged with. Find the
That's
baseline
amazing though,
of
because like even without the processing, I feel like just naturally your voice is halfway there, right? You sounded like the mech
thank
right
you.
there. That was really cool.
It wasn't I didn't want it to be like, oh, this is a robotic voice that is clearly being processed, but more what is the organic quality of it so that we need to be afraid of this character, right?
Right.
There has to be there is volition that's behind this. That's causing this thing to chase her. So being able to kind of find what that is, and then also I wanted to play with you. You give me this note of like I don't want it to be perfect English. I want there to be some flaws that
Right.
wouldn't be necessarily human
Little
error.
glitches, yeah.
Yeah, without sounding like Max Headroom, but just being able to play with pace and being able to say 4, 5, 9, 6, 9, 9, 3, 2, 5. Where numbers and things don't necessarily have the same meaning to it as it would to us, which is a fun thing to kind of play around. And then I put that through this harmonizer plugin, which literally took my voice and did 3 different octaves of it. So there's one that is just like scraping the barrel of Sonics in the very, very bottom. There's one that's pitched like a fifth below, and one that's like maybe 1 octave below that. And those things are all kind of moving together so that you hear this more like 3 dimensional aspect to it. And it's used a lot of times in like hip hop and R&B because that's where you get that kind of auto tune sound if you were or being able to play with the voice as if it's a melodic instrument. So putting it through that, and then just really using a lot of EQ to make sure that this sounds so boring. It's so much
No,
fun
it's
to play with it.
fascinating.
Okay. Because for me, I love being a mad scientist, and I'm old school. Like I grew up in studios, or not grew up, but like especially in my late teens and early 20s, I grew up in a studio that had old gear and like faders and dials and switches and stuff that I love playing with. I'm looking even at my rig right now, and I've got like some gear that has old VU meters, and I just love gear, and it's fun kind of emulating that through software. And I'm grateful for the tools that we have. But at the end of the day, I love to get my hands on buttons and switches and play Mad Scientist. And so that's something that really drew me to this beyond just being like if this had been just a gig, if it had not been you and there wasn't just this desire as a friend to see you succeed and be a part of the things you're creating, if it was just someone calling me up and saying this is a character we want you to play, I would still have gone this far because I wanted it to be, it was fun, it was a challenge, and it was a project that I could really kind of sink my teeth into, and I was given the opportunity to do something beyond just stepping into a booth, getting behind a mic, saying my lines of dialogue, and then getting out in the parking lot or in my living room, as the case is typically. So it was a lot of fun being able to play with that. And then on top of that, having Austin Wintory being able to sound design on top of that and give it more of that, having the score almost be a part of the mech, so that when he spoke, there is, if you listen,
Yeah, the
there's this
ambience.
really
Yeah.
cool ambient thing that's happening underneath
It's
as
almost like
well.
a mech heartbeat what he came up with. It was really, really
Yeah.
cool. When you and I are done talking, I'm going to play some of the isolated mech ambience for people so they can just hear what it sounds like. It's really creepy. I love it. He did a great job. And he
The
was
best
and he was using the voice that what you had already done. He kind of used that as the baseline, which is why they kind of match up so well, I think.
Mhm.
Very
And
cool.
the ability for someone to kind of take that and think about this in a creative way, to me is something that really is, you don't even notice it. You don't hear it. You just feel it. And that to me is always kind of the goal with the tips and the tricks and stuff like that in processing, is not for it to be overt in your face, but to be just something that you feel.
I thought it was terrific. And what's interesting was like it doesn't seem. I mean, what do I know about voiceover work? But it doesn't seem what you did here, like the full service. Like here's the voice, and here's all the post processing, all the kind of the audio characterization. That isn't typically what you would do, right? Wouldn't you just give them your raw voice and let them
Oh,
worry
yeah.
about doing the
No.
rest?
Nobody would let me do that. There's a lot of times there's checklists where they're like, "You're not running any compression, are you?" I'm like, "No, yes, but I'm not going to tell you that now. I'm going to be in trouble." So, being someone who at least understands what compression and EQ and stuff like that is, I know how to make my voice sound better from a recording standpoint. So, I like to try to do that, but no one ever gives me the opportunity to like throw effects on there and be
Right.
able to really manipulate and sound design. That is somebody else's job, and they get paid to do it, and they're really worth getting paid to do it. I'm not. But someone being able to say, "Here's an opportunity. Let's see what you do." And I was fingers crossed. I sent that out to you. I was like, he could hate this and be like, never mind. I'm just
No,
gonna
I
call
loved it.
Greg.
I loved it. I mean, again, I was surprised when I first heard it because wait, he did all of the like. This is the finished product, not just the raw voice that I'll then go away and figure out. Like, maybe I'll find someone else who does audio to kind of make it sound more mechanical or whatever. But you again, we did nothing to that. Like again, we added Austin's kind of ambient heart, that kind of mech heartbeat underneath it. But the voice, all of the processing, all of the glitching and stuttering, like that was all just in the file that you gave me. So I thought it was amazing. But from your point of view, yeah, I mean, it is an opportunity that I guess you wouldn't, because again, that kind of decision making will be left to other people, right? So just give us the raw voice and we'll take it from here. But you actually had the opportunity to kind of, I don't know, just like, again, kind of really create the audio profile of the character from beginning to end, which I think is really cool.
It's a fun way to think about a character, and anybody listening, I would challenge you to find opportunities to where you can do that. And it's free. There's no, you can do this on your phone if you want to, but anyone has a desire to create a character in any, whether you're going to be a writer or a director or an actor, being able to just question whether or not you can do something. Like, I have no idea. Can I do that? It's a wonderful exercise, and I did it within the safety of someone who, if it wasn't good, would tell me like, "Appreciate it, mate. I'm not going to use it, but we'll get you on something else." But do it, in the comfort of your home on the phone where no one ever is going to ever hear this, but you. But there's always something about, necessity is the mother of invention, and having an opportunity to thrust you into like, you got to do this. You said you would, now perform.
Right.
That's always a place where I like to, to play from.
And you were just, again, you were like a total professional throughout because there were some pickups. I did come back to you with some like ADR, like, can we get this line again or whatever? And you just like, at one point, I know you were traveling to go do like an actual paid gig, and you only had like a day to knock it. Are we allowed to say what that was, by the way, or is that a secret? I can't remember. I know
No,
you
it's still a secret,
still
but
is
yeah,
okay.
we
Well,
were.
we'll keep that under wraps. I think people will be thrilled when they find out what it is, though. But you basically had a day before I was going to lose you for a month, so it was like now
Yep.
or never. And you
Yeah.
found time, and you got all the final lines back to me, and it was that was a series wrap on the Met Commander on Troy Baker.
How many more episodes do you have? This was episode 6. Is that right?
We just did episode 3. There's 6 more to
3.
come, and you are
6
in
more to come.
almost all of the rest of them. Now that your character's established, you are through like the whole rest of the story. So there's lots more Troy
That was
Baker
kind of the deal.
to come. And again, without giving away too much of the I'm not doing any bit parts. I'm in the whole thing or nothing. Without giving any story stuff away. There's stuff that happens to that commander character later where you again had an opportunity to really go nuts with some of the post processing, and I think I can't remember. It's maybe episode 5 where that happens, and again you did all of that, and there was I basically he needs to sound really kind of messed up, and you just went wild with all the glitchy and the stuttering, and it just sounds so cool. I was in awe. And the funny thing is, like you say, oh, I'm an amateur, it's all like home equipment, don't really know what I'm doing. For this project, you fit right in. Because that was, Shannon recorded the first thing she ever recorded literally was like under her bed sheets into her iPhone. That was
Right.
that was how she recorded the trailer. That was the first piece we ever did with her. And this whole thing, Adam Nickerson, who has kind of been my partner in crime behind the scenes of this, basically taught himself how to do audio engineering and how to use Audacity like from scratch. Like this was at the beginning of this project. I remember saying to myself, how hard can it be? It's audio. Well, it turns out it is actually pretty hard to
Quite
do it,
hard.
to do it right, to do anything good, to do anything the
Yeah.
right way. It's not easy, and so it has been a real crash course in audio. And for various reasons, some of the raw audio we got in did need a lot of work to get it to kind of like a broadcastable standard. And again, Shannon came back and re-recorded a bunch of stuff. She was a complete trooper. The number of times I asked her to kind of like do the same line over, and she just did it without complaint until we got it the way that we wanted it. There were some instances where we couldn't get a pickup, and so we literally were. I want to do like a whole story, like a whole behind the scenes on this, where we literally were kind of Frankensteining new lines together from words that we found elsewhere in the dialogue, right?
Yeah.
Like so, like I remember at one point we needed the word "found." Like for some reason there was some
Go
noise.
digging.
So we went and found lots of other founds, and we found one that matched the one that was missing. And Adam did it in such a brilliant way that you would never know like where they'd been Frankenstein together, but I know where it is. So it's even more impressive to me. I was like, man, that sounds really good. Like I remember what that sounded like before we had to fix it, and it's really been again just a tremendously very steep learning curve. I have no appetite to do another audio project anytime soon after doing this one. But I learned just with Animal Talking, where we learned how to do like a dumb talk show, and you had to learn a bunch of what I found interesting about Animal Talking was it was an opportunity to kind of like develop new skills, right, and learn new things.
Yeah.
And this has been very much the same. And working with you and working with Shannon and with Adam and Austin and some other people that have helped us out behind the scenes has really been a highlight of it. And again, thank you for being a part of this. I think you really kind of took it to another level. I was so amazed by what you brought to this.
Thanks, man. It truly has been a pleasure, man. And I am, whenever you're ready to do anything else, whether it be audio or otherwise, you definitely have me in your toolbox to pull me out. That's a weird analogy to use. I didn't think that one through, but I'm honored to be a part of it, man.
Where else can we see and hear you right now?
Well, coming up very, very quickly, if you've not been on social media at all, there's a huge push right now for the Last of Us Part 1 remake. It is a ground up rebuilt for the PS5, and eventually we come out on PC as well. So there's a whole group of people who've never played it because they're just not Sony people or whatever. But it truly is just I've been getting a bunch of different feedback from people from the team and people who are playing it, and it's not a graphics update. This is something that it's beautiful because you can experience Part 1 and Part 2 side by side with each other. The AI is incredible too. It plays better. So that's coming out September 2nd. So I'm super excited about that.
Now, did you go back in and re-record any Joel for that, or is that the one part that they kept the same, just the original audio track?
This is what's great is they were able, and we went back and forth of like, what do we do? How do we do this? Because it's a whole new rig. It's a whole new Joel. It's a whole new Ellie, essentially, right? Because it's something that fits within what part two looks like. And so they found a way to be able to keep our original performances. So the story stays the same, and those performances that we remember stay the same, but they marry them with the what it's actually closer to our original performances because the nuances and the subtleties and the tech to be able to capture those is better. So they went in and hand animated all of those things. To make it to be as close to or actually closer to what we originally did on stage. But there is one thing that I have to point out that I think is incredible. The we added a lot of breathing because there's a very dynamic breathing system within the game. And so one of the things I did get to go in and do, there's some new AI in the game. I don't want to spoil too much for people who haven't played it yet, but there are a few things that we had to kind of add in there. But just everything is more robust. And I'm hoping I'm not getting in trouble by saying this, but because it's going to be out in a week. But Last of Us leaks, which came from me, whatever. I'm pretty sure they've already been talking about this, but the only thing that we did was just add to the systems that were already there and gave it just so much more. It's more tense. It's just way more tense, and it's closer to the original thing that we were trying to go for in the very beginning. So I'm really, really proud of it. The team is proud of it, and it's something that even if you've played the game, it's worth revisiting and worth playing all over again. And I get nothing for you doing that. I'm really, really proud of the team and what they've all accomplished to be able to put this thing out.
It looks great, and I really like the point that you just made. I made the same point to someone the other day that you can now play the two games together, and they'll feel of a piece. Like you won't have to worry about that kind of generational jump. It's like, this looks way better than the previous one, and that's kind of jarring. Now you could play them both back to back, and it would all feel like it was just made as one thing.
Absolutely.
And of course, you could argue that the reason why they didn't go back, the one thing that they didn't go back and redo was the original voice performances, because how could you possibly improve upon it? Like it was spot on to begin with.
Cheers, man. I think that we did a great job. And clearly it's resonated with people so much that we got the HBO series that's coming out sometime next year because of it. But it's also, it's art. You can always, this, you could edit. You could constantly iterate and hopefully make it better. But at some point you have to set it free into the world. And the version that we did is what, there's things that I always look at and I go, I could have done that better. But that's just me kind of being wrapped up in my own shit, as opposed to appreciating the fact that that version of that was the only version that the people who have experienced it will ever know. And it's great for them. It's perfect for them. And it's moved them. I'm getting ready to go to Toronto this weekend. And the thing that I look forward to the most is hearing the stories from people of the things that I've been involved in. And how it's impacted them and how it's changed them, and especially after COVID, how it found them at just the right time and it helped them carry through. And it just reminds me of why I'm in this industry, why we do this, why we create art, is because it's just like tentacles from our heart reaching out, trying to connect with people in any way that we can. And I'm grateful that I've had opportunities like that, like even like this. I would love for someone to come up to me in Toronto and be like, dude, I listened to it. It's incredible. Please tell Gary that he's amazing. I'm like, I will. I'll text him right now.
Well, as I mentioned to you, there's a better chance of that happening in the next couple of weeks, as I mentioned to you, and as I've been trailing on the show for the past couple of weeks. The podcast version should already be out right now. This is fun to do this with a live audience, but the biggest audience for it ultimately is going to be in the traditional podcast form, where people can kind of listen to it, as they listen to podcasts. Like my wife listens to podcasts while she's like napping with our youngest, or while she's kind of messing with the laundry or whatever. Just things you can do while you can listen to it while you're doing other things. And by now there should have been a podcast version already up, but we delayed it because we did have interest from like one of these big podcast networks. Again, we can't say who it is just yet. But once that gets announced, I think it'll be very soon. Probably I think we might be like only a week or 2 weeks away from launching it, and hopefully this and you and Shannon and Austin and everyone who brought so much to this, hopefully finding a much wider audience, because they'll get cross promoted on other shows and promoted, and it's more than I could ever do just by kind of beating the drum by myself. So I'm excited for that. So there's a good chance. Obviously you're known as Joel and Booker in BioShock, and Bruce Banner in the Avengers, and now we can add Mek Commander to your list.
Pick that box, baby.
I love it. It's funny, and the weird thing is there's weird kind of Last of Us connections all through this, not just because it's generic, kind of in that kind of post-apocalyptic space, but you're in it, and obviously you're a
Oh,
huge part of both games, right?
and then
Shannon's in
also
it, who's
Shannon.
Dina in The Last of Us Part Two. And when I first spoke to Austin about the soundtrack for this, the reference I gave him was The Last of Us, the Gustavo Last of
Wow.
Us music, and we listened to the very very first trailer that you narrated
Mm.
before there was any game footage. I don't know how well you remember that, but it was just like kind of news footage of the world going to shit.
It was the first day that we shot, and it was the last thing that we did. And Neil goes, "I just want these are the lines that we're gonna have for the trailer, and I want this is just what we want, and I want this to feel very much of just you talking to somebody." And what I ended up doing was lying down on the ground and like kind of just like kicked back like this and just talking about it. And he was like, "Don't worry about editing spaces. We can take care of that." And that's how we record. That was the audio that they used, to my knowledge. They could have changed it, but that's what I remember is that it was literally me in a mocap suit lying down on the ground of the stage there at Culver Stages, and that's how we recorded. That's one of the first things that we did. That's one of the first things that they put out, and everybody
Yeah,
was
I
like,
remember,
"What is this thing?"
and it stuck with me because all these years later, I went back to Austin, and that was the piece of reference audio I gave him because I didn't want like a kind of high tech sci-fi kind of thing because it's all kind of set throughout the American Midwest. I wanted more of a somebody called it cyberpunk western in chat earlier, which I thought was cool. But I wanted kind of the
Yeah.
strings and the kind of the acoustic sound. And Austin's done such an amazing job with it. And when we're done here, he's going to dump all of that onto Spotify and Apple Music and Bandcamp, and you'll be able to go get like the Gundog original soundtrack album. So that'll be cool
Oh,
too. Um,
so talented.
Troy,
Yes, sir.
I'm so grateful to you not just for being a part of this, but also giving up your time to show up tonight and talk to us about it. This has been so interesting. I'm probably going to carve this out and put this segment up as its own little YouTube video, and I think it's been
Cool.
fascinating. And I'm so interested to talk to you about it when the podcast version comes out. I think we might be recording some separate kind of behind the scenes, so I may end up coming back and talking to you about this all over again for some podcast behind the scenes content, or maybe we'll just repurpose this. But I could talk to you forever about it. But I know you've been more than generous enough with your time already. Thank you so much. The audience I know has loved hearing from you, and like I said, they did guess you. They got you. I don't know how important it was for you for you to kind of trick people or remain disguised, but somewhere between them knowing that you and I have done stuff together before and recognizing something deep buried under all of that processing. They still know Troy Baker when they hear it, which I think, I don't know, it's kind of
Ah.
cool. Um,
I'll
thank you.
take it.
I'll let you go. Thank you so much again.
Thank you, my friend. I'll talk to you
Thanks,
soon.
Troy. Good night.